Do you remember? Back in 2017, when nobody even knew about Bitcoin, let alone buying it, there was a guy on YouTube called Monte Crypto Conto who was making videos about Bitcoin. A lot of time has passed since then. Years have gone by. And now, almost the owners of the world huge investment firms like BlackRock are buying Bitcoin. The Bitcoin mining device you see in my hand is a 1.2 TH power Bitcoin mining machine. In the past, it was like a goose that laid golden eggs or a gold production facility in terms of Bitcoin production, but now it's just a hobby. With this device, it's almost impossible to mine anymore, but it can still produce. Even if it's just a little, it can still produce. However, mining is much more important than before, friends. We are seeing the Bitcoin bull run, but when is the altcoin bull run expected? Will it come? In this video, we'll also take a look at the Bitcoin season and altcoin season. And we'll talk about the importance of Bitcoin mining. Let's get into our video. Bitcoin is something that is produced through mining, friends. But of course, it's not a metal object like you see here. Many people still think that Bitcoin is some kind of metal thing, but Bitcoin is not a metal object like that, my friends. Bitcoin is produced through mining. For example, governments print money and can print as much as they want, whenever they need it, however they like. I'm talking about all countries when I say governments, and this causes inflation in that country's currency. But there's no such thing in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, production is based on processing power and electricity. It's not unlimited. It doesn't belong to anyone. Its supply is limited. Everything, all the rules are clear, and that's why its inflation structure is very high quality. Last year, in April 2024, we experienced a halving. With this halving, the Bitcoin block reward per block was cut in half. So we're talking about something that becomes increasingly difficult to produce. With every halving, production is reduced by half. That's where the term halving comes from. Now, the reward per block has dropped to 3.12 Bitcoin, friends, and this year's production will be approximately 164,000 Bitcoins. However, even though we're only halfway through the year, publicly traded companies have acquired 185,000 Bitcoins, private companies 16,800, and ETFs have acquired more than 35,000 Bitcoins. In other words, even in just the first half of the year, demand for Bitcoin has exceeded the total amount of Bitcoin produced this year. The supply of Bitcoin on exchanges is steadily decreasing. This could lead to a sudden Bitcoin shock or crisis. But I know that many of you are holding a lot of altcoins, and many of you have never held Bitcoin at all. But the only coin that has never disappointed is Bitcoin. We know this by now. However, when we look at long-term Bitcoin investors, there is significant profitability. And under normal circumstances, if we look at previous cycles, during periods of high profitability, long-term holders would sell their Bitcoins and realize their profits. But in this period, friends, Bitcoin holders are not realizing their profits. They are continuing to hold, they are continuing to hodl. If we take the 2017 cycle as a reference, friends, the price of Bitcoin is expected to peak in September of this year. Now, there are important developments on the Ripple side, friends. As you can see on the screen, Ripple and the SEC made a joint application to the court to have the case dismissed, and this was actually a very good development for Ripple. However, Judge Torres rejected this because the reasons presented by both parties for this settlement, for the dismissal of the case, were not found sufficient. The SEC requested that the penalty given to Ripple be reduced by 60% and actually wanted the legal obligations demanded from Ripple to be lifted. However, the judge said that this situation did not constitute an extraordinary circumstance and rejected it. So what do you think this case means for Ripple? I posted a tweet today, and when we look at it, Ripple is one of the coins performing best in terms of distance from its all-time high. First Bitcoin, second BNB, third Ripple. Because Ripple investors are very passionate investors. So what do you think this case means for Ripple, my friends? Chemad said that Bitcoin should be bought in January 2020 when the price was $7,000. And it turned out he was right, which attracted a lot of attention. In other words, he's an analyst with successful predictions. Now he shares the following, and we can also see this from the charts. After the first halving, it increased 45 times. After the second halving, it increased 28 times. And after the third halving, Bitcoin showed an 8-fold increase. From this, we can see that the halving has an effect on Bitcoin. It shows an increase that is gradually decreasing. So in any case, it shows an increase, but the rate of increase is gradually declining. So using this data, Chemad predicts that the price of Bitcoin will reach $500,000 around September or October. Of course, this is not investment advice. There could be a mistake, but this is the direction of his analysis. On the US side, the debt ceiling is rising, and we will see more liquidity. Globally, the supply of absorbable money is steadily increasing, and the role of the dollar as a reserve currency is now seen as risky. Because there is too much borrowing, debts are being paid, and dollars are being printed, this is also seen as a risk. So now, there is a perspective in the market questioning whether Bitcoin could become the global reserve currency instead of the dollar. Now, the price of Bitcoin has increased, but look, altcoins have not been able to show this performance. And friends, since 2022, it's not a short time, 22, 23, 24, 25. For a full 4 years, Bitcoin dominance has been rising. A rise in dominance is interpreted as a bear market for altcoins. But we can also look at it from this perspective. Bitcoin season, altcoin season. The green areas you see here, friends, represent Bitcoin season. Look, in 2017, we experienced an altcoin season. After that, dominance started to rise. This, friends, is the Bitcoin season. It dropped again, and we experienced another altcoin season. Now, we've witnessed another 4-year Bitcoin season. So when will the altcoin season arrive? There are expectations for the last quarter of this year. Many analyses anticipate the arrival of the altcoin season. There are various reasons for this. As I just mentioned, if the absorbing money supply increases significantly and the Fed shifts to easing policies, we might see an altcoin season. But I still think Bitcoin is very attractive. Here, they mention something interesting. There has always been a transition between Bitcoin and altcoin seasons in September. For example, in 2019, the final phase of an altcoin season coincided with September. Then, friends, it bottoms out again and once more hits its lowest point in September. After that, it rises. We experience another altcoin season. When does the altcoin season end again? The lowest point is in September. And they say that now, once again, the altcoin season has completed a 4-year cycle and it's Bitcoin season. There's a comment suggesting that we might see another altcoin season after September. For example, here, the dominance decreased. But at that time, Bitcoin moved sideways and a lot of money flowed into altcoin. Coins like Cake and Doji did 100 times, friends. Now, increases of 10 or 20% make us happy, but the previous season wasn't like this. 100-fold gains really happened, friends, but I think they happened and are over, just like that. And we might never see those 100-fold gains again. But we will see 2-fold, 3-fold, 5-fold, maybe even 10-fold gains. So there won't be the same kind of altcoin excitement and bull run as before. But if you pick the right coins, we'll still see an altcoin bull run in those. That's how I see it. But Bitcoin mining will always be more valuable. Bitcoin is always more valuable. You may not have much money, but I still think you should have some Bitcoin in your portfolio. Now, if we experience a good altcoin season, of course, it's important to trade on a reliable exchange. If you don't have a Binance account, you can open one with a 20% commission discount and verify your account by using the QR code you see on the screen or the link in the video description. At the same time, you have a chance to win a withdrawable $20. I hope my video has been helpful to you. Hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.